Stav is a body, mind, and spirit system of Northern Europe. It's based on the 16 runes of the younger futhark. Around 1200 years ago, the 32 rune system was broken down to a 16 rune, or condensed to a 16 rune system that we now call the younger futhark. Stav as a martial art is based upon the principles that the runes convey. Through doing the rune breathing form and moving in the rune stances, as you're now observing Ivar Hofsköld demonstrate, the body is able to take on the different qualities of the runes, and the movements come out naturally when applying them in a martial situation. Stav is a generic name for the system of body, mind, and spirit development that was found from Lower Germany all the way up north through Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Holland, later taken to Iceland. It also made it into areas of France and Belgium. The roots of Stav are the same as most of the Celtic era and heritage and culture, Indo-Aryan. That is, somewhere down in the northern Indian area, the people of the Indo-Aryan races moved northward and westward and conquered people along the way, basically mixing their cultures as they went. They brought with them the warrior class, the horse, and the chariot. Before that, in Europe, there was the matrifocal-centered culture. That is, there was an emphasis on the feminine in Europe, and there was no warrior class. As Indo-Aryans came through and mixed, you ended up with a blend of the cultures. Stav very much draws all of its material from that blend, from the pre-existing culture and the Indo-Aryan Celts who came through later. The system, the martial system and the health system and meditation and so on of Stav dwindled over time as the Christian era started to invade into Europe. The Christianity took hold much later in Northern Europe than it did in Southern Europe, and it really was absorbed by what you could call the old religion, or Stav actually. But it survived especially in one family, the Hofsköld family of Norway. As time went on, and we moved through the medieval period into the much later eras, there were often rune revivals, or kind of pagan religion revivals, in Europe every so 100 years, especially around 1600, 1700, 1800, and 1900. But the Hofsköld family maintained this tradition of Stav all the way through, intact, and applied it in their daily life as well as in martial situations as they came up in those different eras. Ivar Hofsköld is the last person in his family to have been trained and to have taken his knowledge out on the road, basically, and tested it in different areas around the world, most notably in North Africa and Japan. And through that testing of the system and the principles that the system teaches, he was able to perfect it, basically. And he's then authorized 4 students to carry on this family system. The Stav system itself, based upon these 16 rune principles, also has another aspect to it. It's based on 5 classes, or what we could call the castes from the old class or caste system. But these represent more than stations in life. They represent levels of consciousness or awareness. And applied martially, they give a framework for the way that the different personality or ego structure or basic level of development within a person, how that person will apply what they do in a martial situation. Basically, there are no techniques. Even the rune stances that you're watching right now and the breathing that accompanies them are only ways for you to kind of open your mind and your body towards moving in a natural way and allowing these movements to come out in a martial situation with a clear mind. So there are no actual techniques in Stav. Now, that's really good because it enhances any kind of martial art that you may be doing already, especially a weapon art. Stav is very based on mental development. It's the ability that you gain from doing this rune breathing form very slowly each day and coordinating your breath with your movement that allows you to keep your composure when you face a self-defense situation or a situation involving weapons. And through having the state of mind that's relaxed and composed and kind of neutral, non-reactive, you're able to naturally flow into whatever situation is best for you to come out on top in any type of aggressive situation. Stav is a martial art, that is a warrior art from the warring days, not a village or hand-to-hand fighting situation. That's why the weapons are taught first in Stav. And it's important to understand that as you practice Stav, because sparring with weapons was not really done in weapon training. If you sparred with weapons, it made you develop habits, or allowed you to develop habits that would make your actual fighting on the battlefield a little sloppy. In that way, Stav still adheres to the tradition of practicing your motions with your sword or knife or staff, whatever you're using, in the same mode that you do the rune breathing form in that you're watching right now. That is a smooth, soft, calm type of mode. Training your body and your mind together for a number of years until you can put it together in a battle situation. So sparring would build a type of kind of comfort or laziness of the mind, which would allow you to get sloppy with your weapon. And the warriors in the old days pretty much wanted to keep sharp, so they would keep their mind training up with their movements and not get into this block and counter type of situation, so that when they did get into the battle, you basically moved in as fast as you could on one line and took care of that person in front of you so that you could get going with more people. So Stav is still practiced this way, and it's not really going to give you a great physical workout. It's a soft workout. You will get healthy from it. It's more along the lines of a Tai Chi workout, but it is not a sweat and grunt and use your muscle kind of workout. It's more along the lines of subtlety, skill, relaxation. These are what are important in Stav. The Stav weapons are have a quite variety. There's the cudgel, there's the walking stick, the axe, the sax, or the short sword, the spear, the war spear, and the spear that you would carry along as a staff, as a walking stick. There's the tane, and there's the bow and arrow, and a few others, but those are the main weapons of Stav. Today on this video we'll be demonstrating the staff, which is the main training weapon of Stav, from which all the other movements derive from. And the most important thing to remember as you practice is to never use speed or force. Really allow your body to relax and find the way it has to move naturally to allow the weapon to move through its natural course, to stay on line. The most important aspect of Stav work is what we call line and mental control. Line is more than just a type of center line theory from the hand martial arts. It's a theory that encompasses distance, timing, and also what we call time in general, which is the ability of the Stav practitioner, through calm and centered movements in the face of an aggressive attack, let's say, to be able to move in a hypnotic kind of motion, which gives the opponent the sense of altering the dynamics of the situation, altering time itself, and it has an effect upon the mind of the opponent where they begin to slow down and sort of get off their track, basically off their game plan. That's what allows the person in Stav to move in unencumbered on their line and take the opponent, or just press the situation to your advantage to let them know that you have the upper hand and allow them a chance to back off. Unlike most martial arts that go for speed and hard training and muscular effect and so on, Stav doesn't go for that and uses line, so you actually improve with age as you practice Stav. There's no reason that your ability to sense the line or see the lines, as we say, shouldn't increase with age in Stav. And we feel this makes it a very highly efficient martial art, and one that's great for longevity and practice. The Viking era that was portrayed in Hollywood and showed the Vikings, the Norse people, Norse warriors, as kind of oafs and clods, actually comes from the idea that most of the army, standing army, there wasn't a standing army, most of the army came from common business people, and when they went out to do their plundering or raiding, whatever they wanted to do, it was those people who took up axes and went out and made up the bulk of the army, whereas the leaders of the army were the warrior class and the earls or the jarls above them. So this Viking clod idea of the warrior class itself is incorrect. The warrior class itself was quite well trained, obviously, to survive, to lead its people, to actually achieve what Norse people had achieved in the martial field. They had to be well trained, nimble, agile. All these attributes that we usually associate with Eastern martial arts were also there in the Northern European martial systems. They simply had to be as effective as they were. When you practice, it builds your knowledge and it builds the control of your mind. This is a very important preparatory phase in Stav. You have to continually stay conscious and aware as you move through what you'll see as the pre-basics and the 5 basics as you use all the weapons, as well as during the rune breathing form and the stances. When you feel very accomplished in that realm of staying conscious and you build this mental control and calm, then you need to begin to test your Stav. In the old days there was battle situations always available for that. Nowadays there isn't. So we've set up on the video a little dual exercise where you can work with a partner, not in a form of sparring or in competition, but where you'll work with each other to really work and see if you're able to hold the line as you start to give a kind of imitation attack with each other. In the pre-Christian era, Stav took about 20 years to learn, and it was usually passed down within warrior class families and nobility. Since that era, the masters of Stav realized that there wouldn't be as much time to train anymore, and that the time and the environment in Europe was going to change tremendously. They decided to condense the system of Stav down to a 10-year training program to learn the entire system. One would specialize in one of the 5 classes, the Trell, Karl, Heshe, Jarl, or Kunga, and perfect that class, and the knowledge and the skills and techniques and whatever else was to be learned within that class for the rest of their lives afterwards. But someone who was to master every level of the system and be able to pass on all 5 levels would take usually 10 years to learn the system, spending 2 years at each level. So they would never be as masterful in each level as somebody who had specialized the rest of their life in one level, but yet they could pass on the whole system. Video instruction can only give a basic idea of Stav. It can give you enough to work with until you have instruction in person. The system is based on a lineage transmission. If you wish to seek further instruction in the system, you should refer to the addresses and names at the end of the video. There you find instruction and really the means to perfect Stav. Follow along with the rune breathing form at home and follow with Ivar's movements. Make sure your breathing is full and complete as described later in the video. By moving through the rune breathing form daily, you'll be able to deepen your experience of Stav and help yourself to imbibe and embody the principles of the system. There are 5 levels of rune breathing to be performed in Stav. The first, at the Trell level, you just learn basically how to breathe in and out and how to coordinate your body movement with the breath. You breathe in through the nose and you exhale through the mouth, and you do a sort of isometric contraction, but not very hard at all, just a little bit of subtle tension in the muscles as you move through the form. The second level is the Karl, and at this level you begin to chant. So now you're developing more breath control and the ability to accumulate and focus your energy, and your breath will lengthen and deepen. At the next level, the Heshe level, the warrior class level, as you breathe in and out, you'll be taking short breaths and longer breaths, and you'll also be chanting in between. Again, a higher level of controlling and focusing your energy and your concentration, as well as controlling your breath, your body, and your mind. At the Jarl class level of breathing, you then move into the priest class way of performing the rune stances, where you breathe in and out, and as you exhale, you use that breath to chant the names of the gods and the goddesses associated with each rune to form that connection. In the Kunga class performance of the rune breathing, it's more spontaneous and free, although there is a certain pattern to it, and that can only be talked about or given through personal transmission. Stav rune breathing is one of the most essential parts of the entire system. In fact, the whole system is founded upon each one of the stances in the rune breathing practice. Right now I'd like to show you some detail on each one of the stances used in the breathing. There's 16 runes. And to show you some detail on the stepping and explain the actual breathing practice in a bit more depth. Now there's about 5 different levels of the breathing practice that are applied as you advance through the system. Today we're demonstrating the basic beginning level of the breathing.
which everything else is built upon. So first, I guess the posture is the most important thing to look at, and we want to be in a natural position. Stav is based on natural body movement. We don't go for extreme stretching like splits or anything else like that. And we don't go for extreme muscular development or anything because we believe you should get better as you age in Stav. So it's a natural system. And you want to have a normal stance like this. A lot of people in our culture stand out like this, and this is not so good for a lot of reasons. So let's have our feet kind of straight. But if it strains you for now, you can let it come out, and little by little in your daily activities, as you walk and everything, you can work your feet back to being straight again. You also want to have your legs a little bit off lock. So not bent, you're not really taking a stance like in Kung Fu or something. You just have it a little bit off lock. That is really the most natural position to be in and allows for some springiness in the knee, just like that. It allows the energy, what we call Megan, to flow through the body a lot easier as well. Also, what you want to have from the front is to be aware of any asymmetries that you may have. If you have a scoliosis in your spine or something, you want to look in the mirror and try to even that out and try to be as straight as you can that way. From the side again as well, one thing you don't want to do is have a big curve in your back. So you want to tuck your pelvis under slightly. Not so much exaggerated that you have to tense your stomach muscles to hold it. So just slightly off lock here, kind of feeling a little bit of a cushion, tucked slightly underneath there in the pelvis, feeling an elongation in the spine, and the head held up high, kind of floating up there like that. And the arms just naturally resting wherever they fall. Don't hold them pinned to the side or anything military, okay? All right, so when you start the rune breathing practice, it's good to do morning and evening, or before and after a training session, something like that. It's a bit of a body prayer, actually. So what it is you're facing north when you start these rune stances, and then you start to move east, north, east, north. And you end up on the east in the first set. When you go back into the second set, you do all the rune postures again, mirror image on the other side. Now you start facing the east, and you go east, north, and you finish north again. So it's a complete practice. So it starts north, ends east, then goes back, starts east, ends north. And that'll be clear as we go through it. And basically, what you want to do is cut up the day maybe into the morning. You're doing, say at sunrise, the rune breathing, starting facing north, what we call the right-hand side. And then maybe at the evening, at sunset, you'll start on the east and finish it. It's like an opening and closing to the day. It's really nice for your health and your mind and your well-being. But if you want to do it specifically for training sessions, it's kind of nice to have a full package on that. To open with the breathing practice, facing north, the right-hand side again. That'll put you into a calm mental state and tune you into the runes themselves as you go to apply their principles in practice, in the practice session. And then at the end of the session, to cool down, get your mind focused again, and go out in a good way from the session, you start east and finish back in the north again with the 16 postures. Okay, so it's not like an Eastern martial art form that uses a lot of vigorous movement. In fact, if anything, I'd like you to think about it like a Tai Chi form, linking the runes together in a nice soft breathing practice. But you hold a slight bit of kind of very soft isometric pressure as you move into the postures. Really soft, not tensing. You don't want to see anything bulging or anything, but it's not dead either, where it's just kind of like mush, all right? So that comes when we start to do the movement. Now let me describe the breathing and the stepping. The breathing that's going to occur is very, very low, low abdominal breathing. And as you hold this posture, when you breathe in fully through the nose and expanding down here fully, then when you exhale, it's through the mouth. And there's a bit of a contraction in the throat, so you hear the sound a bit like that. And you breathe out fully, and you contract, contract, contract until there's nothing left down in here at all. When you do that, what you'll notice over time is that for men, the testicles will rise up a little bit into the body, and for women, the vagina will pull up a little bit. This is very good for your health and very good for the esoteric energy development that's involved in the system as well. But again, don't tense it and try to squeeze and pull up as in like Taoist methods. It'll happen naturally. Okay, so when we start the rune breathing, you start facing north, you do a bow. The bow is this way. You're coming out forward over your feet, and you're extending out forward. You don't stick your butt out, in other words. And then you keep the head like this, and you come back up. This is the traditional way. So you bow this way to the north. The north is seen as the place of the ancestors and the gods and all that, so you're kind of paying obeisance to where this heritage comes from. Then you start by taking 9 deep breaths in and out, the kind I just described. So you start to center your mind. And it's good to fix your eyes on something in the distance and kind of stare out there while internally your mind is working inside and feeling your body and feeling the energy open in your posture and so on. So you do your bow, you do your 9 breaths in and out. So you're breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. And it can take quite a long time. As you get better at the practice, your breathing will extend and each breath will become very long. At the end of the 9th breath, you bring your hands up softly and you clap twice. 1, 2, and then you bring them back down. Now those 2 claps are done traditionally. One for the realm of the gods, basically, and goddesses, to kind of wake up the etheric realm and the esoteric inside you as well as outside. And the second one is for the realm of the humans, the earth, Midgard, this earth plane. It's kind of like psychologically you could see it as really telling yourself, hey, wake up, it's time to practice, and let's get everything together in our mind and our body and our energy. So you can take it as an esoteric or exoteric level, whatever you prefer. Then you take one more breath in, one more final prep breath, and out. And when you finish that last one, you now begin to start the rune practice. And you start with that first rune that you saw my teacher Ivar performing, Fey, the Fey rune. And you're going to come up, and what I want to do is not repeat everything, but just show some of the mistakes, because you can't get it all on the video. You don't want to have your hands come out like this and then cross somewhere up here. You want to have it be a very natural rise from here, crossing out somewhere in the middle, and allowing a continuing, it's almost like you're holding a sword here, allowing your arms to continue up like this, into that kind of position. And you don't want to spin your elbows out like this, okay, but natural and comfortable. Now something else that we see from beginners a lot is that when they're doing it, they'll often go like this. The shoulder joint and the back are stuck together. That's how our conditioning in our culture creates our bodies, to be very stiff. You really want this to be all by itself. The shoulders are moving independently, and the back is set, everything is comfortable, and then back down the same way. So that's a major mistake to avoid there. So don't cross too much, don't cross too late, and don't bend back on the Fey rune. This is done north. The Ur rune is also done facing north, so the first 8 are facing north. In Ur, you bend forward at the waist, and you just let everything hang. So come forward as far as you can and let everything just hang, your head, your hair, everything as you're breathing in, right? And then as you're breathing out, you come back up. Now, it doesn't matter if you can only hang to here. Consistency is the key. Over a number of months, you will get down very low. Your body will stretch, even just doing this posture twice in a day. So basically, you're breathing in with that very deep breath as you move into the posture, and you're breathing out as you come out of the posture. There's a slight pause between those two. So that's Fey and Ur. Now sometimes in Ur, you'll notice people don't let their arms hang. They kind of go like this. And there's tension in here, actually, in the lats and the deltoids holding the arm up. Just let it hang as you come down. Really let it go. This rune breathing posture imitates the natural animal posture that we had if we were back on 4 legs again. And it takes all the gravity stress off of the organs. So it's one of the main healing postures. So you can breathe in and out and let the organ really relax if you want to do it just for healing. So the main thing is really to relax into this posture as you come down. It doesn't matter how low you go or how high you are, and come back up on the exhale. Again, the important thing in these postures as well is the timing. You want to have go from full exhalation to full inhalation at the top. They're timed together. Then when you have the pause and you exhale, you want the full exhalation right here. Don't run out of air here. So the timing of the breath is very important as well. And that has a deep effect upon your mind and your energy flow in your body. So that's Fey, Ur. Next one is Tur. And for Tur, the main thing is start to make your fist soon and bring your both hands out, and they kind of meet a little bit in front of the groin. And they crank over, really crank over like this in front of you. Okay, so if you look sideways, the hands are quite out in front. That's the Tur rune. Now you'll see me using this in the 5 basics later on when I hold the staff this way on the first 5 basic movement. This is how the principles in the body start to work from the runes into the actual martial movements. Okay? And that's Tur. And again, it comes down the same way, like that. That's the exhale. So there's really not too much you can do wrong with that one. But this one is the only one where there's a fair bit of tension And it's in this hand and this one as I really try to crank it over. This one has a type of stretch on these joints. We tend to get really tight here, up in the shoulders, the wrists, and the elbow. And this is a type of stretch here in this rune. And back down, relaxed as you exhale. Os, the next rune, Odin's rune, is when the hands come up this way, just as if you were going to do Fey on the first one. Like a sword holding position is what I like to think about it as. And your hands are extended out in front of you at this distance, at this angle. Okay? Again, the same thing goes as goes for Fey. You don't want to cross the hands too much like this. You want to keep them pretty much in here somewhere in this zone. Okay? And you also don't want to bring them up like this and then cross them. So it's a gentle rising of the hands as you bring them up this way, and they cross and hold, pause, exhale, and come back down. No problem there. Okay, so Fey, Or, Tur, Os, Rai. The next rune is Rai. And for Rai, what you want to do is slowly shift your weight over to one side and bring the arm up and the leg up at the same time as you're doing that breath in through the belly, and hold up in this posture. Now technically when we do Rai, the angle of it, if you draw the rune, is like this. It's like an R, you could say an English R. But when you practice for your own health, you probably want to comfortably just breathe in and let the hand and leg come up as high as they can, just to get exercise, and then bring it down under control again with the exhale. So that's the difference between the writing the rune and actually practicing it and getting some exercise with it as well. That's the Rai rune. So again, you make it smooth, really smooth as you come across, and as you breathe up, and you bring yourself up into this position with full breath, then you slowly come down the same way. Be under control and let your weight rest back at full exhalation. Watch out, beginners, you go like this a lot. You know, be leaning over sideways. Get the body straight up, center your weight, let this arm come straight up. It's nice if you can get this over your head here, somewhere like that. And this is another thing from the side. Beginners will often do that. Don't lean back either. Over time you'll get it. Kreft is the next rune. For Kreft, breathing in, the hands begin to turn this way, backs of the hands come together, and you're rising up through the shoulder joints this way. They come up around the temples. That's full inhalation. At exhalation, they come out this way. Now, right about here, you'll feel the brachial nerves in the arm will give it a little bit of a twang, and you'll feel some kind of warmth and tingling down into your fingers. That's what it's designed for. I found that this rune keeps the tendon and nerve structure inside the shoulders and the arms really open and flowing. Also, you feel the energy tingle down there. So that's the Kreft rune. Okay, so it's Fey, Or, Tur, Os, Rai, Kreft. That's called futhark. That's like the alphabet, you could say, in English. Then we move to Hagel. Now, this is the first one we start to move. Now, if you noticed, if someone was standing on the side of me over here, out to the east or out to the west, as I face north, each one of these rune postures done from the side could be looked at as a type of writing. Okay, so with the Fey, Or, Tur, it's like a signaling. This is one of the reasons that we move side to side as well, because it's a signaling system. If you're camping, say, and somebody's a mile away on a mountain, you could actually talk to them through the body signaling and communicate anything you need to communicate. So to exercise that a bit as well, we do this stepping to move to the east now for the next rune, because we're signaling someone on the side, let's say. So you drop your weight, step out, and do a half moon step like this. Very natural, very comfortable. I'll just show you a few times. It's really, really natural and comfortable. The toes point and make this kind of arc around like that. Back up into your natural stance on this side. Around and up. So when you get to Hagel, the next rune, this one, you're going to do it on the other side. So you take your step, come up, and then you breathe in again. So I'm going to do it facing to the camera, assuming I took that step and I'm now facing east. You breathe in, the hands come up and cross in front, and they come in right about here. Wrists are back a little bit. Right hand is leading in front of the left hand on the right hand side of the runes, the ones that you start facing north. Then you exhale, and you come back down again, opening like this. Very simple. That's Hagel. Some of the mistakes on Hagel, people crossing at the wrist. Won't work later for the martial art when you need to do crossing moves using the principle in your body with a knife or something like this, a skramasax. So you want to have it nice and centered in the middle. Okay? And that's what gives you that hodl rune. Okay, next one is Nerd. And Nerd, again, would be done facing east, but for demonstration's sake, I'd like to show you this way. Nerd is, again, breathing in, and the arms open out and up on that inhalation until you get a nice, wide open stretch through the chest. The right hand is up on the right side, left hand is down, okay? And it's a diagonal through the body. And the same thing as you close and exhale back down, timing it all together. Obviously, I'm going a bit quicker now, but you go at your natural pace. That's Nerd. Sometimes people go way too far behind, really stretching, and what they're doing is putting too much tension in the muscles back here. Let the front of the chest open up over time, and let it be natural like this. And also try to avoid this. This neck posture is very bad for the body. But it's very natural in our culture today because of the unhealthy lifestyles that we have, basically. Okay, that's Nerd. Now, East. This one's very nice. Again, facing east. You breathe in, and as you breathe in, your hands start to come in to the center. You see my weight starts to shift forward as my hands come in. I'm breathing in, and right about here, my heels start to lift off the ground. So my fingers turn up through the solar plexus, through the heart, and I'm starting to rise up. Comes up through the neck, right along the front line of the face, okay? And I'm still rising on the toes. Toes are still coming up. I'm not full up yet. And I'm still breathing in all the way. When I get here, it's at full inhalation. And then I'm going to pause up there slightly and exhale and really open wide while I'm up here and allow my arms to gently fall down, down, down. Now my body starts falling back down again. And at the full exhale, I have full weight back on my feet. And I'm back at the starting position again. From the side, to watch out for is this. When people come up here and they start to rise up, they start to do that. You can see my back kind of swaying in. You want to really hold it flat when you're in the top position and get your butt tucked under still in that same position, and then open out this way as you start to come down. This is a very centering rune, and it's quite good for calming yourself if you're upset, or if you ever want to check your state of mental clarity. If you start to wobble around in this rune, you'll know that you're kind of out to lunch a little bit. Because if you're stable in it, your balance outwardly usually affects your balance inwardly. So that's east. East means ice. Again, done east, facing east. Now the next one done facing east is R. And R is kind of like the opposite of Nerd. It's basically the same hand position, but done on the other side now. And it has a kind of opposite meaning as well in the rune system. So it's just stretching like this. Don't overstretch. Don't stick your neck out. Same rules as before. Same guidelines or principles, and you're exhaling back down. Okay? So that was done here to the east. That was my last one that way. Now I have to signal the same person with another rune that's best seen sideways. So I step down, do my step, come around up front again. This one's called Sul. So for Sul, what I do is I just start to drop down this way. This is the one that looks like a bit of a lightning bolt. So if you see my body from the side, my body will take the shape of that lightning bolt. So you want to come down to about here. You don't want to collapse, because when you collapse, the knee joints themselves open and rotate, and the cartilage inside gets damaged as you now contract and come back up. So again, what you want to do is just come down, nice and natural, relax, you're breathing in, hit this position here, and just stay right there. And pause for a second. Now exhale, and as you exhale, you come back up, same way, same speed, nice and relaxed. Don't hurt your knees, okay? If you have knees that are a bit painful or you're a bit older, just go down to what's comfortable. You don't need to go as low as I did. It's more the mental idea that's important. Also, if your knees hurt, when you take your step here and you come up to your normal standing position for Stav, you can rotate your knees out, like your toes out like this, and let your knees follow out this way on your toes. This way takes a lot of tension off the knee for people who have bad knees. And then you can come back up. Now just to show you from the side the things you don't want to do, you don't want to get your back like this. You defeat the purpose of the rune. So if you can only go down a certain amount, and keeping your back straight, then only do that. If you can only get down to here with your back straight, then stay there. It's better than doing this. But if you can go all the way, fine. Then go all the way, keep your back nice and straight, and don't go down the whole way. Remember, don't take the tension off the knee. Then just come back up at the same speed and keep your back straight and let your legs really work. We don't tend to work our legs enough in our culture either. Okay, so that's the Sul rune. Again, that's facing this way again, signaling someone sideways. Okay. And next one is Tir. And Tir is very simple. Hands come out, open up into like an arrow shape, just like this. Just like an arrow. Now martially, this principle later on involves a lot of other positions with the hands as you hold weapons and so on. But again, for now, for the breathing, this opens up these lines here. And then you exhale again and come back in. There's not much you can do wrong with that one except maybe go too far behind you or have one high and one low. So you want to stay really conscious and aware of the feedback from your body, how balanced everything is as you're breathing and moving. Okay? That's part of the awareness training of Stav. And although this is a simple rune breathing form or posture or stances, it can build tremendous principles of awareness and continuity, clarity, smoothness, and linking the body and the breath together. Okay, so that's, let's see. Fe or tur os rai kreft, hagel, nerd, is, ar, sul, tir, for to go, bjork, man, laug, and ear. So again, for bjork, if I'm signaling someone from the side, right, then I had to, well, sorry, for tir, for the last one, again, I would have been facing this way because I would have had to let them see it this way, so I'm east. Now, on this first set of runes, we come back again this way, and now I'm doing bjork. Bjork is kind of like rai in the way it moves, but instead of the leg coming out this way, the leg comes up. So the hand and the leg raise at the same time, and you're in this position, which seen from the side would look kind of like a B. This is one of the more obvious martial positions that people can tend to see the applications right away of that principle. Okay, that's bjork. And you exhale down out of it the same as you do all the other ones. Again, don't get the hand out too much to the side. Try not to get the elbow out too much like this, or the knee, crooked. Try to stay right up in this line as you come up. That's what builds a nice awareness of your body in space, and will flow into the weapon work later. Keeps you really smooth and on the same line. The next rune is Mun, and Mun, again, we'd be coming down, circling and coming back up this way with our half moon step. But I'll demonstrate into the camera again. Mun comes this way, hands come up, thumbs meet around here, start opening this way, coming up, and letting your thumbs fall into the head area here, and really opening up the shoulders. The main thing on this posture is to really open the shoulders back this way. That's why we don't get very much stretch from working the way we move in our society. So you want to hold up this way. Fingers are splayed open. They're against the head. The hands are against the head. Okay? So things to avoid would be the hands out like this, okay, or up like this, straight on top of your head. Get it right in here, nice and close. Get this open. Avoid this kind of thing where the arms and shoulders are forward. Also avoid, by opening, avoid arching. Okay? So keep the posture like this and open fully like that with the head up. This is obviously one of the most martially applicable situations too. Say I have my short sword or large knife, you want to call it, whatever. I'm coming in with my opponent. As I turn, as he comes in, as I turn and lift up here, it's the way we stay off the line covered, and then you can come back for a strike. Even empty hand coming in with the elbow, avoiding something going by you. That's Mun. You're breathing in, and you breathe out on the way back down the same. Okay? And Laug is a very simple posture. And you're going to do Laug, again, facing north so that the person can see you from the side. And you just breathe in and allow your hands to rise up to about this position. And then breathe out and allow them to come back. Not much you can do wrong with that one again. Now, the way you move into the final posture is you want to take your half moon step, but now it comes down into the foot pointing out on 45 degrees. And in all the other steps were kind of very smooth, like this half moon. This one's kind of a stomper. So you actually go like this, lift it up a bit and place it with a lot of intention down that way. Then lift this one up as well and step it in. Now you're on the same line, toes are out at 45 degrees, facing east. Your hands hang naturally down by your groin, and you breathe in fully as you go down. And here you want to sit really comfortably in the spine, let the legs be like this. What you want to avoid is this. This is terrible. Really bad for the knee, bad for the whole position. It'll teach you how to move incorrectly with the weapon. So sit back. If I can only go to here and keep good alignment, that's what I want. If I start to go lower and I do this, and then I don't want it. So the bottom should stay tucked in, the back should stay straight. Again, the mind is still clear, and you're breathing in, and the knees are sitting back. And then you exhale slowly, coming up the same speed you went down. You move the right foot in, you move the left foot in, and you would bow, because that would be the end of your rune breathing for that session on that side. So you went north for the first 8, east for the next 4, and then back and forth for the next few, ending up finally east. Then, if you were going to continue straight through, after you stepped back up, after this rune ear, and you stepped back up under control, you wouldn't bow. If you were going to finish the series, you'd start again from the east here, and you'd do the mirror image. So instead of with the right one up leading in Fei, like the first rune of this series, you'd now do the left leading. And you do all 8 in this position. Or, Tor would be on the left, right? Os, Rai, Kreft is the same, right? Then you'd step around this way and do Hagel facing north, where last time it was east. And instead of the right being on front, the left would be on front. And so on, all the way down. Until you finish your last one with your stepping in, up into ear like this, and coming up to finish, and then you would bow north again. Okay? That's the rune breathing. And if you do it every day, that's more important than doing 4 or 5 hours of it once a week. It'll take you about 8 or 10 minutes as a beginner. And as your breath extends, it's not uncommon for people who practice it for a long time to have a 1 or 2 minute breath. So it could take anywhere from 16 to 30 minutes to do the one sequence of 16 runes with the breathing. At that stage, you've developed really great lung capacity, really calm mind, and you've been able to slow your heart and do all the rest. And you get a lot of health benefits from it. But martially, as far as this Stav video goes, for people who are into the martial aspect, yeah, you get the health, which allows you to train longer in life, but you get the ingraining of the principles of movement of Stav into your body. They're very soft principles of movement, right? You don't want to become this crashing Viking warrior that the Hollywood kind of movie genre is kind of built up in our minds. So this is what develops that mental calm and serenity and the movement of a relaxed warrior, basically, who can control a situation without using force. And it's all based upon the runes. Now, each one of these 16 runes have certain qualities associated with them as well, esoterically, psychologically, as well as spiritually. So as you practice it more, if you come to seminars and trainings with us, we'll teach that aspect of it. As you're breathing, you can actually start to embody some of the qualities or evoke some of those qualities of those 16 runes as you're doing the rune breathing. There's also gods and goddesses associated with each rune, and they have certain qualities associated with them as well. And this makes for this, you could say, gestalt or total approach to the rune breathing and the Stav martial art training. And that'll then flow into your weapons. So in the beginning, I think a good way to practice this is you do your rune breathing on the right side, starting north, then do your work with the staff that we're going to teach in the rest of the video. And after you've done your 1,000 movements or so, whatever you choose for that day with the staff, then you do the rune breathing to close it down again for the day. If you're just going to continue training Stav on a consistent basis, but say you're going to do only the staff techniques 3 or 4 days a week because that's all the time you have, something like that, then you might want to do the rune breathing first thing in the morning around sunrise, and then the last thing at night when you finish your work or whatever around sunset or something to close the day. But still you get to use the principles of the runes and develop your right and left sides, and you're constantly ingraining that softness of movement and that mental state that's necessary for you to be able to make a really good cut and perform Stav in a really excellent fashion.
These are not techniques. These are the 5 class principles of Stav. The trail principle being demonstrated here demonstrates how you move back from fear and then come in after once you've achieved a good position to take out the opponent. This is using the staff against the axe. The Karl class, which is the next, will illustrate now how you don't react with fear so much, but you react with aggression, and you move the person out of the way. You come off your line, take them on a new line, but you definitely impress your will upon them. So the first reaction is not fear in that case, but standing your ground. This is the Hesha, or the warrior class mode. This is a principle, remember, not a technique. You control the situation, and you give the person ample time to rethink what they're doing before you take them out. This demonstrates the superiority of skill of the Hesha, or warrior class person. In the next class, the Jarl class, the priesthood, you're detached, and through a subtle movement, you simply avoid the attack and the conflict altogether, and you're poised for any kind of retaliation that they may have, but you prefer not to. This signaling with the runes that I'm showing with the hands after each attack tell the person that you really choose peace. The Fey rune, which you'll learn later, is the rune of peace, and you'd rather have that, but you're ready to move if you need to. This demonstrates the Kunga principle of spontaneity, of knowing what's going to happen before it happens. It's our type of enlightenment. Axe against the walking stick, you can see that Graham in the trell position reacts with fear, then aggression, and now as a warrior takes a position of supreme skill, and here as a priest again avoids the conflict altogether. In the Kunga position, the spontaneity shows his skill and mastery as the king of the situation and simply disarms the other person. With the axe, the trell again moves backward out of fear and then attacks when it has a good position. The Karl impresses itself immediately upon the opponent. The Hesha sucks the person in, you could say, by looking open, and then takes control through their skill. The priest class chooses to come off the line and avoid again, and the Kunga class says simply, get out of my way, you're in my way. It's a spontaneous enlightenment type of situation. This is the trell with the short sword or the knife, the Karl, again pressing the advantage. The Hesha class dropping down to the outside, seizing control, and with a short dagger into the kidneys, finishing the opponent. This is the Jarl class way, and now the Kunga class way. First avoiding conflict, and now the Kunga totally controlling. This is the war spear that would have been used in ancient days. It could have been up to 3 feet longer. We'll now take the head off to demonstrate the techniques with a certain level of safety. Again, in the trell, the situation is that the person with the spear reacts with fear, first moving out of confrontation, controlling the situation, and then finishing the person. In the Karl, the person moves in off the line but takes the person out right away. The Hesha, they skillfully avoid the incoming attack and place himself in a position where there's no retaliation, again avoiding it in the priest class with a long swoop off the line. Kunga class meeting the attack in the middle, taking it out of the way. This is the walking stick with an antler demonstrated by Ivar Hafskjold's son, and that was a trell technique, trell principle. This is the Karl principle, again moving straight in. The warrior class principle, taking control of the situation once again. And remember, these are not techniques, just illustrations of different modes of fighting. This is the priest class principle, and the Kunga class, or the kingly class, acting before anything happens. This is a demonstration of the antler, or the branched stick, one of the more obscure weapons from the ancient system of Stav, and some of the empty hand applications of the Stav rune principles in the 5 classes. There's a direct approach, there's avoiding and a takedown, and a total evasion.
The basic training weapon for Stav is the staff, which is what Stav translates into. From this staff, which was actually a spear in the old days, but became a staff as it became uncool to carry weapons around, we developed all the basic movements that are needed for the sword, the axe, the scramus axe, the short axe, the walking stick, everything. Because you could walk around with this and not get in much trouble. So the actual length of this staff should be up to about one's armpit. And you have to vary it a little bit based on how long your legs are. The diameter you want to be about 25 mils to 19 mils. You don't really want it thick. You don't really want it that heavy. What you do want is a nice thin but very dense wood. This is an Australian rainforest hardwood. It's flexible but it's very dense and hard. That's what you want. Because the action end of this staff is right here. You're not going to be hitting too much in the middle. Everything's with this point. So you want a nice sharp attack like this and not have it shatter the first time it makes contact. So a little bit of flexibility but a lot of density. So what I'd like to show now is some of the manipulation techniques that were brought in the past 20 years into the system, although the system's thousands of years old. People in this system originally from a warrior class background would grow up with these spears with a spearhead on here, and they'd be playing with them as kids all the way through. So they developed the ability to manipulate them and know where that weapon is when they move in space. But since we don't have that, our teacher, Ivar, thought that it would be wise to have some techniques that we can run through to basically get good with manipulating the staff. But the first thing before we get into that is how to hold it. Now, good training for this is to just have it in your hand lightly. All Stav techniques are based on calmness of mind and moving very slowly, actually, not fast. You're not trying to beat somebody to the attack. So this training is really good and useful in the beginning to hold the stick really soft like this. Don't grip it. You shouldn't see your muscles clenching in your arm. And what's good we do with our students is just to walk with it like this, holding the line of the staff towards the opponent, okay? So you're just basically training yourself to walk in a relaxed manner with your mind smooth and the staff pointing right at the opponent. From the side, you'll see that it has kind of a little bit of an angle upwards towards where the opponent's head would be out in the distance, okay? And again, you're just going to kind of walk across like this. So that's how you hold it. And it's very useful practice to do like 20 times up and down before you start your practice session each day, just to get familiar with the stick again and comfortable. Then when you come onto guard position, you'll want to take your staff from here, pull forward, holding that line straight towards the opponent, starting to turn. Your hand will, from working with it enough, will know where it is as it comes in at your body. And you'll take the grasp the bottom end and just hold your on-guard position, basically right here. Now, in this position, you'll notice that my torso is not straight ahead. This is not in my groin. It's just a side standing position, really soft like this. I'm not flexing and grabbing tightly. In Stav, the top hand is very soft and just used to guide the weapon. The bottom hand is the stopping hand, and you'll notice that the end of the weapon falls right into the center of my palm. That's so that as a strike is made, that's the stopping power. It can't flip out as long as the thumb is locked around the top of it over here. This hand simply guides it with all the strikes. So you'll notice that the movements we're going to do are going to imitate sword movements, axe movements, and so on, but we're using a stick. Like I said, it's the basic training weapon for all the other weapons in the system, as well as this weapon itself. This was a traditional weapon of the priest class because they really didn't want much conflict, so they didn't want to have a bladed weapon, and this is all they needed to deal with their opponents. So again, from here, from the side, this is like the draw, you could say, for your sword if it were a sword. You're coming up, facing towards the opponent, hand comes under, finds its natural spot, press, and just rest. And the rune posture that this one is mimicking is the os rune, the one that looks like the F with the downward slanting strokes on top of the staff of the F, right? The os posture. Same one you'd hold for a sword, okay? Now from this position, and it can be taken on both sides, from this position we're going to do a manipulation technique just to get the fingers good at manipulating. So I'll do it from the side. It gets you used to drawing. Now drawing back the Stav is really important. You'll see how my thumb rotates over the stick immediately. The stick is in the center of my hand. It's against my body, and it's drawing back to the tear rune. This is the tear rune, when you see later. Shaped like an arrowhead, you could say. And what you're going to do is just rotate your feet, rotate this hand over with the thumb as you turn, and thrust up into the same guard on the other side. And just holding this guard from side to side develops an awareness of where the Stav is in space on your body. And this is important for nighttime fighting. If you were defending yourself at night, walking stick, whatever, you don't have to really see where you're going. You can feel the Stav on your body, shoot it out and you're on guard, and your whole line is covered. Okay? So this is good to do, really useful to do back and forth a whole bunch of times. The main thing is to really get this rotation on the hand right here so that the Stav falls nicely into both hands right here. That allows for quick changing of the hands for the strikes. Even if you're waiting in this kind of position, whatever, you have to have this ability to manipulate it right here. Okay? So that's one. You're going to just pull back, get it on the body into the tear rune, rotate, thrust out to the other side. Another exercise, we call these the pre-basic basics, because they didn't exist in the system, like I said, until a few years ago. Another one that's good, get up into your on-guard os position from here. And this is where we start to work the footwork in. You're going to draw back, remaining on that line. Remaining on that line, it's against the body, body's turned. And what you do from here is simply rotate the body, keeping the hand out in front.
holding that line of the strike, and striking into the second guard position. Notice I didn't step in yet. This is one of the key factors in Stav, is that the weapon arrives first, the body arrives later. In a lot of modern martial arts that we're seeing, modern taught martial arts from China and Japan, you'll notice that the body and the weapon land together, this type of thing. In this type of motion is very common in the body. But in Stav, it wouldn't be that way. It's there, and then you follow, because from a warrior tradition, from real battle scenes, or real battle episodes, if you get there when your weapon gets there, you get skewered. You want to be there first, covering your whole line, and then have your body come in behind it, okay? So this manipulation technique trains that into your body. Pull back onto the body, have this facing, manipulate the weapon, change your grip, then step in. Now you're in the opposite guard. Again, you do the same thing. Take your step to the inside here, come into the opposite guard. So in Stav, you're really moving from guard to guard hitting. You're not so much thinking about nailing the person as much as you're moving from a covered position here, really softly and gently, to a covered position here. Anything that happens in between doesn't really matter because you've got it covered. Pulling back, covered. So let's say I was here in this guard and this fellow's coming in on me and I start to make a move here and I can change here. I'm still covered on the side. There's no problem. I can step back and hit. I can step to the side, whatever. So in the beginning, I find students do maybe 100 of those type of movements, maybe 100, 200 of those movements per day, where you're pulling back here, coming through, stepping, pulling back here, coming through and stepping, okay? The other pre-basics are very similar. This one comes directly from the spear techniques, and it's the Tor rune. When you see Tor is done like this, when we do the rune breathing, this is held in this way, and this is for spear techniques. Now, this is going to be the most unusual to people that come from an Asian background in martial arts, because they don't tend to use this grip very much. Here's the same principles. You're going to pull back, get your thumb over the stick, pull back on the body. Yeah? If you were doing the first one, sorry, you'd pull back. This one's just going to come pull straight back like it's a spear, and there's a head on here. So you stay in that position. Take your twist like you did on the other side. Come back into the opposite on this side. Again, so now you're hitting with the butt end of the spear. Pulling back, rotating up. Now you're on the business end of the spear. Okay? So it's the same motion. So from the front, it's here again. Torun, pulling back, rotating in, coming up. Pulling back. Notice the body twisting. You really have to twist here because that's where the strike comes from. It's not this. Okay? This is really an inefficient way to use your body, and it overcommits you. Stav is based on warrior class tradition where people really had smooth footwork and nimble bodies, and it just places it. Again, if you have a 1 or 2 pound spearhead there, it's going to do the job for you. You don't need to smash them. Okay? That's the second one. Okay, the third one, you can come from your on guard position here, and you pull back to here. This is the rune called Nöd. And we don't have that middle letter in the English language, but anyway, Nöd. So it's up like this. And again, it looks like I'm very open, but it's on line. Meaning, if someone comes in, I simply close it down and hit. My whole line is covered, and I'm striking to the temple, either that way or that way. It doesn't matter. So again, for manipulating the weapon, move from Nöd here to strike here, pull back, Nöd here to strike here, step in, pull back, Nöd again. So this same way again. Here, striking, stepping in, pulling back, Nöd on this side, striking, stepping in and pulling back. That's another useful exercise. One more. One more specifically for the spear. Again, so here you're in your on guard again. You've come from standing to on guard. And in the on guard position here, you're going to step and pull under and shoot the spear out and step up. Same thing. Step, pull under, shoot the spear up, and come out. So from the side, you're here. You move into your on guard, feeling for the Stav underneath, pushing in, step, pull under, up. Just this way. Often coming underneath the person's attack. In Europe, in the old days, you did a lot of straight down chops, as you're going to see. So a lot of times you'd come underneath with the spear. That was just obvious. So those are the 4 pre-basic basics to get good dexterity with the Stav and good manipulation of your fingers. And no matter what other weapons of the 9 that you do in Stav after this, these skills will be translatable right into those other weapons. So The basic strike that we use is this strike here, where we're going mostly for the temple there to keep you on line, whereas the bladed weapons will tend to come straight down with the strike. I want to show you an exercise on the wall over here from behind. You can probably see it just as well as any other position. You'll kind of pick a spot on a wall or a tree where it lines up with about your third eye, your head, somewhere like here. So on me, this would be about this position here. What I'm going to do is mark that spot on the wall with my stav in my guard position, and I would be standing straight at it if I wasn't doing it for the camera here. I'm just going to pull back, step back, strike, have it land right on that spot, and come back to this position again. Pull back, step back, strike, have it land in that spot, pull back, step back, strike, pull back, step back, strike, pull back, step back, and strike. And this kind of exercise builds a really good skill of you're maintaining really good distance and really good line. Okay? So that's a really good exercise to do as well. So we show the moving up and down the floor ones as well. You can do it, just pick a fixed spot on the wall and use it like that as well. Okay. And now I think what we'll go to is illustrating the 5 principles of Stav, Threl, Karl, Heshe, Jarl, and Konga principles, with taking an axe cut. The axe is the teaching weapon of Stav for the attacks. It was the most common weapon carried in the Norse country because everybody had to have one to cut the trees down. And the bulk of the Norse armies were made up of axe people, just normal free men who were business people or farmers. And that's why the image of these kind of big rampaging bulk Vikings slashing with axes came to be known, especially through Hollywood. But the warrior class people and above hardly ever fought with axes, unless it was a real distinct specialty of theirs. It was rare. They usually fought with sword or spear. These are the best weapons available. Also the bow and arrow as well. So, but as a teaching weapon, because most strikes with the axe are the same as with the sword, we still use the axe because that's how it was always taught for thousands of years. So we'll have students come and demonstrate a straight attack and side attack with the axe to illustrate these 5 principles. Okay, now to demonstrate the first principle of Stav, the Threl principle, I'll be using the staff against the standard axe cut. I just want to do this straight onto the camera so you get an idea of how this would look. Again, Threl, remember the main principle is that this is the unconscious, untrained mind that's reactive. So when an attack comes, there's no thought process. It's immediately, get out of the way, half moon step back, drawing out of the way. But you're still holding a kind of shape since it is martial training. This shape here is important. This is not a block on the attack for your wrist. It's just a shape holding this here. Okay? From here, we bring this hand up, slide this to the end, hook the weapon, drive it back into their foot or the ground, and then simply press in towards the throat with the end of the stav. Okay? So one more time. Smoothly it goes from here, drawing back in a nice sweeping kind of wave motion, having this line across yourself. If their weapon cuts through, you don't mind because you're way out of range anyway. You're just holding this line basically, so if you need to, you can raise it straight into the person. From here, the hand slides up. You bring the weapon over and down in a half moon shape, and then step in. Okay? And I'll just demonstrate that with Steve here. So he's going to take a cut from my wrist. And the reason we train it like this is an ancient system. In the old days, somebody from this class shouldn't even be approaching a warrior and trying to give him a hard time at all. So what they do is want to teach you a lesson by cutting off your hand, and you can't hold a staff anymore. So the cut comes for the wrist. All the other cuts will be for the head. Let's say we approach each other, we're walking along, and he sees me like this. He takes the cut, slowly moves around, and I'm just going to draw back on this line. And this is where the wrist used to be. Okay? So if he cuts through, it doesn't matter. He's not blocking it. The main thing is that you're not blocking it. So let's show that again, nice and slow. So this is up here. Yep, he moves slow, and this thing's cutting back through. Okay? You're just up here, and you're at about here. Now, you can see you have your distance. That's the important part to see. And he can feel like, come around, strike. He can feel like he has you, right? Come, just leave it there. He can feel like he has you here. There's a sense that he feels he can still reach you, but you're really well covered here. And what you do is you slide up and you maintain that control. If you didn't slice through, you start to move it here, come over and build the momentum as it drives down. If you can plant it into his foot, so much the better. But you don't try, you simply try to move it down. That brings him into an open position you see right there. You simply raise up into the throat and you drive back if you need to from there. Okay? It's quite simple. Let's look at one more time. Again, the Threl class person's approached by a warrior, let's say. half moon step back, out of range. See, misses, doesn't even matter. If I want to, I can move straight in from here. Let's say it stops over here. I can take it up, over, down, and back up and in, and he's pretty much history. Okay? That's the trail class movement. The next cuts she's going to demonstrate on us are overhead cuts, which is what more trained warriors would be doing on a battlefield, with this axe especially. A lot of the peat bogs that were dug up in Scandinavia and England and that, you'll see that the warriors have their helmets on still, and they've been dead for a few thousand years or whatever. They've been split right down the middle, and their heads are kind of like in two pieces. This is from this cut that Steve's going to demonstrate. So he's on guard, and I'm kind of just in my open guard position here. This is the Carl class technique, the second level up of consciousness in this system. This principle will illustrate you no longer react with fear, but you still are kind of reactive in that you go straight in. You're smart enough now to take an angle and move straight in, but you're still reactive. You're not giving him a chance to really rethink what he's doing or anything like that at all. So super slow. I'll show you how it happens. He pulls into this guard cutting position when he's about to come in. He doesn't commit his weight yet. That's good. Come through with this step again. He hasn't committed his weight. He's about to come. Stay right there. He's about to come with his cut. This is where in Stav you have to really hold your head together, because this looks pretty scary when you actually do your training. Now slowly as it starts to come out, you bring this up and you bring it back up a little bit more. Just up there. You bring it up, you just make contact. Now my body's off his cutting line right here. He can turn if he wants, but I've got contact, I've got coverage. This one is here, and what he does as I continue my step around, I just stop there. I just raise up, and if he's a trained warrior, as it starts to come out, he won't continue his cut. He won't start to cut from my belly, which looks kind of open at this point. Okay, let's try it from the other side so they can see it on this side. So again, as he starts to get up for his cut, and he starts to come down with it, placing up right here, and basically I'm going to slowly bring it out so he gets the idea that this is business. Now, if he were to cut from my belly real quickly, I would just bring it down here. Again, you're here. And a lot of times it looks like you're open, but when this moves into someone's face very quickly, they stop their cut. And again, in warrior times, I would trade a little cut on my leg for taking his throat out any day of the week. No problem. Okay. So that's the Carl class technique. Let's have another look at it one more time. So you'd be walking along, and he's taking his position. He's going to decapitate you, and you just slide up and in, and that's down and in. Okay, this has made the move, and basically you stop there. Now as he pulls back, he's reckoned he's done, and he just pulls, disengages. We do a type of movement to keep your mind centered when you practice Stav, that you move from this position into the Fei Run, like this, pressing out, coming down with the staff end, and coming back down into your on guard. So each one of the techniques we finish, we basically do this kind of movement to end it. Let's show it again on the trail movement. So like on the first movement, I forgot to show you that. As he comes in again and cuts for the wrist, you remember that one? He comes in and cuts for the wrist. We come this way, and we do this movement where we hook, bring it down, and step through. From here, we just come back, just keep focused, draw up on the line, press down, come back, and bring it into here. And this moves through some different runes, just to center your mind after each cut so you don't get into a mode of, we could say, like hard muscular physical training or working out or thinking about being too aggressive. That's what gets you killed in weapon arts. Too much aggression, too much uncontrolled force, not enough static mind, basically, neutral mind. So that's the finishing on that one. Same thing for the Carl. When we come through and pull up, afterwards we just press through here, press down, come back to your guard, and that's it for that one. Okay, now we'd like to demonstrate the warrior class, priest class, and kingly class principles of Stav. Remember, as much as you can remember these aren't techniques. Any techniques you can make up or that would occur naturally in the field of battle that encompass these principles, that present these principles, that illustrate them, really is Stav. It's not a compendium of techniques. Some people say, well, sometimes these cuts look like a Japanese sword cut or whatever. And say, well, there's only so many ways to cut somebody. We cut straight down, we cut sideways. That's all we do. So sometimes they say, yeah, but the footwork looks like really nimble. And say, well, if you're a professional warrior class, and like some of the Viking Age people were, they were mercenaries hired out all over the place. They were the palace guards of the Byzantine kings and so on and so on. You had to be good. That means you had to have footwork. It wasn't that the Norse people were that much bigger. They're about 8 or 10 pounds larger than Southern Europeans. So they were very nimble. So we're illustrating these classes or these principles now of the more trained people. As we go up each step, the mind is more together. So now this class is the Hasha class, which is the warrior class. And in this class or principle, the idea is you really have a type of confidence that you know you can control any situation because you're professionally trained. And as you move into the encounter, what will happen here is as this cut comes over for the top of my head, I'll simply move into a position where I know I've got myself totally covered on my line, doing the Fey rune, and this stick is up at the person's groin. It always gets this type of reaction when it's done live, and you get this position. From here, the person's cut is coming down. They're kind of stopped if they're well trained. If they're not, we simply move to the side a bit and hold the wrist and give them a second chance. If they still decide to mess around from there, well, then it's quite easy to take the throat out from there or even to pull back from there and really end the whole show. So the warrior exhibits focus and concentration, projection of energy to the opponent, handling them skillfully like a cat toying with prey before it kills it. And this is what we'll hopefully demonstrate with this principle here. As Linton takes a nice hefty axe cut from my head, nice and slow. So he draws his axe through. He's coming through with the strike. Oh, let's go back to do it again, actually. Take 1, 2. Okay. So first Linton draws into the guard position with the axe and draws up. And this is where you have to have a lot of mind control like the other ones, but even more. And as he starts to come down with it and takes the second step, this is when this one comes in here. Now, where I am here, if this axe blade were to continue falling, it's got his arm wedged. I could, if he really wants to, stick it in his body, and as he falls, it will drive it harder into his body, okay? Remember, you have spearheads on the end of this in the old days. So this is sticking in there, okay? Now, I'm giving him a second chance. He doesn't want to do anything, and he's smart, and he kind of backs off. As he backs off, I just keep this coverage and cut back into guard. Now, if he kept his weapon up like that, I'd probably take him, because it means he's going to cut again. But if he brought it down, then we'd walk away. So we'll do it again. We'll show you. He comes through. He loads up, and he's coming through with his strike. And right there we come and we land in here. Now, if he's untrained and he doesn't respect me as a warrior class person, he'll continue this cut. As he does, I'll just come down and take the hand with me this way. I'm out of range. He's off balance. One quick flick here, one quick thrust here, whatever. He's all yours. Even stepping back from here, and he's done. Okay? That's the Hesha class movement. Let's show from the other side. Okay. So I'm walking along, ambling along. He doesn't know I'm a warrior class person. He comes with the cut. It's up in there, comes down. This is on the hand, controlling, and here, whatever. Okay, so you're in total control. Again, the same mental technique. Once you finish your technique, whether you come down or not, from here, drawing back, raising up on line with the opponent, going into the Fey rune. This is the rune of peace. And then coming back into Os, Odin's rune, ready to go if he wants to, but you showed him peace first. So that's that principle illustrated, the Hesha class warrior. Next principle we're going to do is the priest class principle. So again, this is one step up again in consciousness evolution. The technique illustrates it. It's a fantastic technique. I haven't seen it in any other martial art that I've studied. I have studied others. And basically the idea here is that the priest class mentality is one that you're detached. Your meditation has been so fulfilled and so on, and self-realization is there. You don't want any conflict whatsoever. In fact, you almost don't notice them. So you kind of disappear. So the way we illustrate this is, I'll do it to the camera once. I'll be walking along this way, and you'll just see a subtle little change like this. Just that little bit of a move to my left as the person comes with a right forward axe cut. Just this way. Your mind is detached, just a little bit of move, and this stick comes up. And I'll just turn and place it behind them, just in case they decide to move. But the most important thing is that my mind is in a state of really detached, calm awareness. I don't really care if he wants to keep fighting. The idea in the Jarl class or the priest class is that he'll run out of energy as he keeps attacking me over and over and over. And I'll just continually evade until he realizes that he's not going to get it, what he wants. That's the whole concept on that one. It's kind of like Tai Chi in that way. So What we'll do now is have Linton take this axe cut. To illustrate this, he has to kind of be walking in with it, and I'll just kind of be walking through and try to get a feeling for it. We'll do it once this way and then once in the other angle. So he comes with his cut, and it's just not there. And you're like this on the finish. So if he does turn, you just let him know that you got him right here. Okay? Let's try that again from this side. So we'll come from out of screen right into screen. So he comes walking through, takes his cut, and it's just there. Okay, thanks, Linton. So we'll do one straight on, too. Now, I know sometimes people think this could never work, but I thought that, too, actually, when I started training. And the more I trained it, I realized it's one of the best principles and techniques that I've ever seen. And I've actually got it to work quite a few times now. But it's the kind of thing where you have to be really sure that it's going to work. And you must be detached of the conflict. If I'm thinking, get to the left now, he's going to cut me. He'll sense it, he'll turn and cut. But as his hand raises up, and just here when it starts to come back down, there's a blind spot. In that blind spot, I disappear. He cuts into the air, and the stick is waiting for him, okay? Let's see what that looks like from this way. So Linton will come straight at me. Okay? And he walks, and it's right there. Straight down his center line. You want to be right here in the back, and it's just like that. You're just going to escape in that blind spot. Terrific. Okay, the next principle that we'd like to outline is the highest principle of the system, and here we actually run into trouble. Because the Kunga class, or the kingly class, or the cunning man class, represents, you could say, like the Merlin level, where somebody is self-realized, but also kind of crazy wisdom, just beyond our comprehension. And it's trying to illustrate the God principle itself, and that's why this is a difficult thing to do. So the idea is really important here. The technique is not important at all. The idea is that we illustrate this with the staff by showing that as you're walking along and you're embodying that Kunga class enlightenment, an opponent approaches. They haven't even maybe formulated in their mind how they're going to attack yet. They just have some type of intention. And before that even happens, you're just stepping in, pulling, bang, hitting them with the spear, or just stunning them, maybe not even hitting them, and pulling back to just let them know that there's no contest, that you even knew it before he knew what he was going to do, or she knew what she was going to do, and you just continue on your way. In the Kunga class principle, one other thing is embodied, and that is, and this was by the highest people of those ancient times in Europe, sometimes it was more advantageous to the person as well, spiritually, to sacrifice them, rather than let them go through life with this kind of unconscious mentality. So in that way, you're a handmaiden of God, but again, this is only for enlightened beings. So that sometimes what would appear to be something that could be easily controlled by the Kunga class person, that person would still draw, bang, kill the person just with one shot and then keep moving. In the old days, that was considered, the Trail people, the Carl class, the two lowest class, thought that was really uncompassionate. But in the highest evolution of the consciousness, an enlightened being would see that as a compassionate act coming from an enlightened being, helping them evolve, that in the next lifetime they would be a little more together. That's a bit of the esoteric side of this system. It's a highly spiritual system. So to illustrate that, we'll just show Linton coming with the attack and this stop technique of the Kunga class, or stop principle. So I'd be walking along, and he's just coming out there, and it's there. And it's just back in. And this coming into the face will just give him that idea of like, maybe I should just back off a little bit. At this level also, the voice was used as a way to project the energy into the opponent and stop the mind as well, sometimes shattering it. The stories about the old masters, maybe 75 to 100 years ago and back, was they could actually fell an opponent just with the sound. They'd wake up a bit later. So again, we're walking along and Linton comes in and it's and back out. And it has that kind of effect. So that's not a technique as much as an illustration of a principle of what you would do if you had that type of consciousness. And it's something that we don't practice. It's something that we just aim for and patiently wait for in one incarnation. So what I suggest is when you practice these at home, make up a routine for yourself. You go through walking with your stav, really getting comfortable with it, even if it means walking around town a bit. In the city, it could look a bit strange. If you're in the country, it's not too bad. We actually get away with it in Sydney, Australia. I guess it's more countrified down there. And walking with it and getting that understanding. And when you turn, having it move with you so it's not an impediment and it doesn't really have this big kind of clunky motion, just turning like this. You notice I'm not controlling it by doing this when I turn. It's just having it move with your body as one connected piece. And it comes from kind of hanging out with it a lot, It's like when you're a kid, you have a basketball and you sleep with it all the time. It's that kind of thing. So you get used to it like that. Again, a review, going through this manipulation technique back and forth, getting into guard position from side to side. And then doing those 4 pre-basic basics. Again, the most important thing, going from guard, draw back to guard, holding your line through the entire motion. Because this is what Stav is all about. Stav was designed that a young person, an old person, whatever, can continually improve with age. You don't have to be strong, you don't have to be fast. It's not based on any strength or any speed. And that was a very hard concept for me to overcome when I first started training in Stav, because everything I had learned before was you have to have right timing and speed. And very few masters got better with old age. They usually deteriorated at some point. In Stav, the reverse is true. Your line sense gets better and better with age, so you can just place this thing up where it needs to be, and it's a matter on an esoteric level of what we call changing time. So as this person comes with a fast strike, by you moving kind of hypnotically and slow, it really throws the whole thing off. And they react to that actually in a way that it kind of stops their mind, stops their intention. So these basic techniques here, going from line on guard to line on guard with the mind really calm and smooth, creates that mind and the ability to, under fire, stay relaxed and allow yourself to be in the right place covered the whole time. So those 4 movements we showed are good to practice, say, 50 or 60 of each day, and then move into practicing the basics. And to practice the basics, then you have to have a person with you who's cutting with the axe, with the overhead cut, and with the side cut. Again, you probably need a club for that, or train somebody else to do it. What we recommend is that you take an axe, and you take an axe handle without the axe head on it, and you practice the cuts with just the axe handle, raising up to here and cutting down through just with the axe handle, and you use the staff against that. Okay? So that's pretty much it on the staff for basic training. One thing that's helpful to do as well is to have what we call comparisons, not sparring. Sparring, let me just explain this briefly. A martial art like Stav comes from times when this was practiced for real purpose of killing on a battlefield. Solo dueling is different. That's a different art. And then later on, as more village styles of martial arts developed, like in China and Japan, where it's all a lot of hand-to-hand, and the weapons weren't used, that's because these people weren't warrior class individuals. So the idea of the martial, the true battle idea of using a weapon and how weapons really function got lost all around the world, Europe and Asia. And this is Stav is a martial art. So we don't spar, because if you get in there and you start, bang, bang, block, 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 then you're not doing Stav, because Stav is not about blocking. It's about slipping through, finding that open hole, sticking it, and it's done, because on the end of this is a spearhead, and it's one-shot deal. Because you're in a battle, you can't have these long, protracted Kung Fu movie kind of scenes while everybody around you is trying to stab you as well. So we do something called comparison, but we do it under deep control without getting into a competitive nature. You'll stand in a guard across from your opponent, let's say. Could be with Tor Rune, could be with Os Rune, could even be a nerd loading up, waiting, whatever you feel like. And when one of you loses your nerve and you get the inclination to go, you basically go. And you go for the strike with each other and you come into each other. But you don't adjust it. You stay with your line and you see exactly where the Stav lands on the opponent to show whether you were on a good line or they had a better line, to show whether your distance was enough or not. Okay? That's a really good exercise. And you just break and do it again. There's not a competitive nature to it at all. The stepping, one last thing to illustrate is important in the stepping. As you saw in the rune breathing form, which is the basis of the whole system, the stepping in the half moon shape like this is really important. Really, that's all the steps that we have. A straight drawback, well, that's a normal step for any system. So the steps that's kind of unique to Stav in a way is this kind of half moon sweeping step. And it was illustrated in the rune breathing form. So on the first trell movement with the Stav, when I came back, it's a real extended type of drawing back versus this type of thing, just running back. You want to create this change in time. To do that, you lull them into a softer mode. I'm still way out of range. I'm covered. I have them if I want them. But the motion kind of lulls them into some kind of softness. Starts to change it already, you see? That's the stepping. We use the Hoggle rune, the rune that you've seen on the screen, where there's the center staff. You probably see it on my shirt, actually. There's a center staff down the middle of the leaf there. and then there's 2 crossed at 45 degrees. That's the footwork pattern, as well as the cutting pattern that we take. These down slashes from the sides and straight down the middle. So in that footwork pattern, we're usually going to take an offline to the person to this side, or if I go straight back like I showed before, it's still done with that circular step to create that illusion of slowing time down that starts to enter into their mind and get them off their game plan, basically. Same thing for moving forward, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so that's a brief overview of the whole Stav system and a little closer look at the staff, the main training weapon of the whole system. It's important that you understand how to use this weapon and be proficient at it to be able to then move into the other weapons with greater ease. Again, I recommend that you train carefully and safely, and like I mentioned before, use axe handles instead of axes with live blades. Again, Stav is not a sparring martial art. You're not going to get a great physical workout, although it's kind of a soft Tai Chi type workout, and the breathing helps with the physical aspect of health and everything. But you have to keep in mind that it's very mental. It's very much about spiritual development and mental development. And practice that way. Keep your consciousness in such a mode, what we call like ice or like ease, very calm, very centered. And for that, you don't need block, block, block counter like Errol Flynn. You just need one motion. Learn how to stay on the line, within distance, to control the situation. That's what you want to learn with Stav. Again, Stav is a principal martial art, so it applies and can be used in any work that you're doing, whether it's Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, Indonesian, whatever. Any true martial art will have the same principles in it. I just find that Stav teaches it in a very concise and clear manner through the 16 runes and the 5 basics that we just demonstrated. If you would like to know more about Stav trainings in the future, there's a contact on the end of the video, and feel free to write to the location nearest you and follow up with some more training. In the meantime, enjoy the training and keep training until we see you again.